everybody. Welcome back again, everybody. I'm going to do a little bit of a series here. It's actually going to be a 3-part series, and the name of the series and the theme is called Living in Illusion. The 3 parts, just kind of break them out for you, so I'll cliffhanger you, if you will. For the other parts are, today, as we talk about living in illusion, I'm going to give you a little bit of backstory, as I normally do, and give you some context, and then talk about kind of self and individual and how this may be a potentially good thing, which might maybe sound surprising to especially hear from me, living in an illusion, versus obviously the bad side of that. So we'll talk about it from a self perspective. And then next week, or in the next installment of this series, we'll be talking about professionally. So in business and in teams and working on teams, or for younger people that are out there watching this, like if you're a part of some kind of team, whether it's a sports team or some kind of extracurricular activity where people are relying on you, how could choosing to live in an illusion be a bad or, again, potentially a good thing? And then the third part is, which is really when I think the topic will get super hot, because I think there's just a lot of sensitivity out there, is in parenting. So in parenting, how could living in illusion potentially be something that's necessary or potentially damaging? So we'll talk about that in the series. So I hope you guys will join me along for the ride, for the journey, and other folks will too, and maybe take some benefit away from this in terms of perspective. And really, again, that's all I like to do is offer here. Not a therapist. I'm not a professional counselor. I don't even claim to be some kind of life coach. I am just a person, an individual, a woman who would like to share my experiences, and maybe in sharing those experiences, somebody can take something positive or beneficial away from it. So like I mentioned, there's a backstory. And the backstory is anybody who's been watching me already knows I am a huge therapy advocate. I believe that actually healthy people choose to seek therapy. It's kind of, if you remember back in the day, and I'm going to really age myself here, but very early in my career, I went to a Tony Robbins seminar, and let me tell you what, it was interesting. It was like a bunch of like dudes in their 20s and 30s and maybe some 40s that were in suits and like jumping up and down for 3 hours. Tony Robbins, who loves to hear the sound of his own voice, talking for that entire time. But one of the things he said that kind of to this day stuck out at me, because there's not much else I remember about it, but one of the things he said was, in the beginning, as he was starting, was the irony was, and this was for like mostly sales professionals, he said the irony was the people that were actually there are the ones who probably needed that seminar the least. And I thought, that's a great point, and it's the same thing in my opinion when it comes to therapy. People who probably need therapy the most don't get it, and the ones who don't really need it do get it. And so that's part of, I think, taking the stigma away from it and understanding there's huge benefits. And one of the big benefits I took away recently was having this moment, and to be honest with you, because I'm so conscious all the time, I'm thinking all the time, I'm analyzing and I'm probing, and I'm so fascinated by the human mind that, and I always say, if I could have one superpower, it would be to read people's minds. And so one of the things that really, like, it's rare, and I'm not trying to say this in like a I know everything kind of way, but it is rare when someone will say something to me that I haven't actually thought about before, like that I haven't like probed or analyzed. It's not often, but that's the benefit, I think, of therapy, is like I can talk to a therapist and share an experience, and he can offer to me a view or a perspective or something to consider that I hadn't actually thought of before. And I had one of those moments recently. And without getting into too much detail, and certainly not as much of a non-private person I am, I do feel it's important that I respect other people's privacy. So I'm not going to share any names, on this public platform. But I will say, I was talking about a relationship in my life with someone who I've been close to for a very long time that has been really difficult for me. It's been one that's caused me a lot of pain. And ironically enough, it's a relationship not based on, at least intentionally, I believe, or initially, I believe, I don't think it was intentional. I believe that this person over time, everybody says you have a fight or flight, way of dealing with conflict or uncomfortable situations. And this person has a flight or flight. Like there's no fight in this person. And because of that and the inevitable things that life brings, and this person's running away every single time there's any discomfort, avoiding, I mean, really going to significant effort in their life to avoid any type of conflict or discomfort, it has caused this person to be extremely neglectful of the people closest to them. And I'm one of those people. And a lot of people I love are impacted by this person who, in their flight or flight reaction, has been very neglectful. So I'll just kind of give that background in terms of giving context to why my therapist gave me this amazing insight. And after I went through literally a catalog, I mean, 10 of what's probably hundreds of situations where this person has been so neglectful and has not been there for me for countless important situations in my life, my therapist was like, wow, you've got quite the catalog happening there. I think it might be time to throw it in the fire, burn the catalog, and understand. And then I said, well, listen, I've learned how to, I'm not surprised anymore when this person lets me down, when they don't show up, when they, avoid, any type of communication with me in terms of resolving a problem. When they miss all these important things, like, honestly, I have the opposite reaction. I don't expect them to be there. And when they do show, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing here? Like, that's literally my reaction to it. However, if you're anyone who's remotely close to me, you know that I am fiercely protective over people I love and I care about. And so the part that was really hard for me was to stand by and watch this person do what they do to other people that I love and I care about. So that was the hard part. That was the hard part for me. And again, my therapist said to me, okay, well, has it occurred to you that maybe these other people that are choosing to still only see the few redeeming qualities that this person has and not pay attention to all of the negative and bad qualities of this person, has it occurred to you that they're doing that because that's the only way for them to either, one, protect themselves from pain or to preserve the relationship? And that you, Angela, as someone who is a believer in absolute truth, could be coming along, and if you take your little pin and you approach their bubble and you pop that bubble of their illusion, that they're going to have a negative reaction to you. They're either going to go back to that whole fight or flight. They're either going to be mad at you and fight you, or alternatively, they're going to run away from you. Because I have had the nerve, the audacity to do what I do in my moral code of coming along and popping their bubble of illusion. And I have to tell you, and I don't know, maybe this is one of those moments where like other people know this and I miss the boat, being as naive as I can be sometimes, that I was like, wow, I did not see it that way. I did not consider that there are people who are electing to live in an illusion. It didn't occur to me that they could be doing this to actually protect themselves from harm. It didn't occur to me that it could be preserving and protecting a relationship to choose to live in an illusion. So I'm going to tell you what, boy, oh boy, did this brain, this hyper analytical and constantly conscious brain go into a tailspin. And I think what I found was I was really conflicted. I was really conflicted with these two very real parts of my moral code coming into conflict with each other. One part of it was like, wait a second, like how can choosing to live in a lie, which is basically an illusion, ever be a good thing? How can this, how can it not cause harm? How can it not be a good, I was just really like, this is confusing to me. But yet at the same time, having these very same people that I was trying to protect in my life go, okay, you know what? They're older. They have a right to choose what relationships are important to them in their life at this point, and they have a right to, you know, choose whatever illusion they want to, if that's what brings them peace and happiness at this stage. And who am I to come in and burst that bubble? They've earned that right. And as long as they're okay, as long as they're not in pain, because I will say that's a deal breaker for me. If the situation is causing harm, I compare it to, and I'm talking people close to me or absolute strangers, I'm never going to be the person who's walking down the street and I see a person being abused in any way, shape, or form and just walk by and say nothing. So that's my deal breaker, no matter what. But if this is a situation where there isn't that kind of harm going on and there isn't pain or harm or the potential of harm down the line, you know, who am I to choose to disrupt that illusion, you know? So I'm very conflicted. As I started to dig in a little bit deeper and think about it more, one of the other things that came to mind was another kind of like moral code of mine, which again, if you watch earlier videos I've mentioned before, which is the importance of recognizing that the only people that we can control in life is ourselves. We cannot control what other people do. We cannot control what other people say. We can't control how other people live. You know, the extent of any control we have over another person is as a parent with your child, which we have an obligation at that point to control them in the sense of keeping them from harm. Keep them safe, keep them fed, keep them alive, keep them from harm. And so we have a responsibility at that point. But obviously our kids grow up, hopefully, and they learn to walk on their own 2 feet, and we've taught them life skills. And then guess what? They're off to the races and we can't control them anymore. Other than that, there's really no other circumstance where we can control another person. And so again, that goes back to the accountability piece, and control is on us. It's on us to control ourselves. Which again, now we're in a little bit of conflict, right? I've introduced a complexity here, which is to say, I can't control and shouldn't, nor should I want to control another person who's choosing to live in an illusion with the rule that it's not causing them harm or other people around them. I can't control that. And why should I try to? That's for them to decide for themselves. Is this something that is potentially protecting them from pain? Is this potentially preserving a relationship that's important to them? Is that my role? So you can probably start to pick one. This is a really like intense, I think, subject, and it's something to like, I know I'm still like processing the whole thing, and I'm still kind of thinking about it. I'm still pondering it. So what I want to do now is kind of expand upon this already extremely complicated thing, but like I think sometimes taking it to a bigger picture can help provide that clarity of like the message I'm trying to get across, which is, you know, our life experiences make us who we are, and sometimes things are not as black and white as we like them to be, and a lot of times things can become very circumstantial, and you have to look at that circumstance and then ultimately decide for yourself, you know, what is the right way, in a very conscious way, in a very thoughtful way, what's best for yourself and for the people that you're affecting. So one of the examples I like to use is in my many years working in youth ministry and working with young people and working specifically with teenagers, was watching one of their greatest struggles in life was the fact that they were so passionate and so motivated to make a difference in the world. You know, they wanted to go out there and they wanted to protect the environment, and they wanted to stop hate and racism, and they wanted to feed the poor, and they just saw the world in a way that was like this combination of like it can be better, but also feeling really powerless to do anything. And so when you talk about an illusion in this circumstance and how it affects people on a much, much more substantial scale, and where it can get really dangerous in a way that people don't realize, is think in terms of the environment, for example. How many countless companies are out there, in particular manufacturing companies, and all the people that work for it, the people making a lot of money who own or operate and run that business, and how they must be choosing to live in an illusion, right? To be blind, to turn a blind eye to the horrible negative impacts they're putting in they're doing to the environment. We're not even talking on like a global warming scale. We're talking about dumping toxins into the water and into the earth that cause people to get sick and die. We're talking about killing nature and the plant life and the wildlife and all of the horrible things that come along with it. So that's one description of an illusion, of which what I would say to young people and anyone out there, not just young people, is grab your pin and start popping and be a disruptor, and don't just stand by and say nothing, right? Another huge example of that would be the grotesquely wealthy people in the world, right? I'm not saying being wealthy is a bad thing. I'm not saying making money that you work for in an ethical way is a bad thing. I'm saying that how many people that are grotesquely wealthy, that are just out there spending their money on frivolous things and toys, who turn a blind eye and choose to live in an illusion that there aren't people out there all over the planet every single day starving and dying. And just a percentage of the money that they waste on their toys and on things that they're just looking to waste and spend money on, how that could have made a huge difference in that person's life. And again, people out there who want to make a difference, young people who need to feel powerful, grab your pins and get out there and start popping those bubbles and be loud and make a difference and be a disruptor. So to me, like, there's so many sides of this, and I think it's not black and white, but it's one that's like really complicated, and it is very circumstantial. And I've run the gambit in this, from saying you're talking about friends or family relationships, and in order to preserve them in that situation, the illusion is a good thing. It's hard for me to admit, but it is a good thing, and it's not for me to control. On the flip side of it, you've got, these situations that cause so much harm and they cause so much damage. And because it all comes down to power and money, that people are choosing to live in an illusion, and we actually have a responsibility to get out there and be loud and make a difference. So I hope that this first installment of this series is just starting, we're just at the tip of it, is starting to give you an idea of like what my journey has been, and learning about like what does it mean to live in an illusion, to seeing it from all different sides. In the next installment of this series, it will be talking about how this can affect you professionally, in your workplace, in your team dynamics, and in situations like that, and how in some cases potentially living in an illusion could be a good thing, but in most cases, especially professionally, it's probably going to be a bad thing. I hope you all enjoyed this. I thank you again for taking time out of your busy week to just listen to me share my thoughts and my experiences in my life with you. I will see you next time. Thank you.